On the other side, there are people that they're not looking to become.
So welcome to the show, Nic Farina.
Thank you very much for having me, Daniel.
That's absolutely fine. So what inspired you to go into vocal coaching?
And that's a nice question. Um, Probably my vocal coach inspired me to get into vocal coaching. Um, she's been probably the biggest influence in my journey, career, whatever you want to call it. She's been able to pass over the passion about the instrument and not just about the music. So about how does it work and how could affect people life. When I understood that vocal training is actually affecting so much someone else's life, um, it was mind blowing. I understood that and was like, okay, that's what I need to do. I love it. It's my thing.
How does vocals affect someone's life? Because I know with one aspect, if you have a child who goes through traumatic event and they don't deal with it, when they become adults, their voice alters to that of a
Yeah.
child unless it's sorted out. But besides that, what other issues may occur because
Well,
of that?
think about mainly the life of a singer. How could they improve for your career if you are a singer, having a good training with a solid technique and blah blah blah, everything that you need to be a singer. On the other side, there are people that they're not looking to become a singer. They're just looking for a way of expression, and they can find it in art, music, learning piano, blah blah blah. Voice is just one of the many artistic, expressive instruments that you can learn. And for a person, it's really important, in my opinion, not just for a child, because it's good for a child to be into arts and expressive stuff, but for an adult as well. It can be really good for the mind setting. When you sing, your brain is gonna release endorphin. Doesn't matter really if you are a skilled singer, professional on stage, or if you are singing in the shower. Your brain is gonna receive it as release of endorphin, and that's the good feeling, right? When you have good food, your brain is releasing endorphin. When you have sex, for example, your brain is releasing endorphin. When you sing, studies been proved that your brain is releasing endorphin, and that can have a major impact on someone else's life. And it doesn't really matter if you're doing it as a career or as a hobby. And that's fantastic if you think about it.
As you're saying that, I was reminded by something video game journalist, author, and indie game developer Yancey Croshaw said is that people with singing who can sing typically have more eloquent voices.
Give me a more specific definition of eloquent.
No, that's how he phrased it. I personally can't. I probably should have said it then if I can't actually describe it, but
No, I mean that's a really good question. It's just the term eloquent. It's like, oh, you have a good voice or you have a bad voice. It's really relative from the point of view. Take that. My mom, for example, she thinks that Amy Winehouse, she has a really whining, annoying voice. I love her. You love her. She loves her. They hate her. That's why eloquent, yeah, depends from the point of view. If you're singing something really smart, you can have a really eloquent voice. If you're singing like Nirvana, that doesn't sound really eloquent, but it doesn't mean that you're not a good singer.
or like a rock band, so it's like ah la la.
And there we go. We all have a different vocal identity, and just label that as eloquent, yeah, it's like you dress smart. What does it mean exactly, smart? It depends what is the environment that you're talking about.
I think, would you say that environment also plays into someone's vocals? Because I've kind of noticed it. Hmm?
Massively.
Yeah. Because I've personally noticed it with some people as I've grown up. Some people have come from less well-off backgrounds and their voice just reflects that. Some people have come from well-off backgrounds, or some people like their voice changes as they develop as a person. But
Yeah, there are some specific things that they are in your DNA. How tall you are is not really something that you can affect. For example, you can go to the gym, but you can't become taller. I cannot get 2 meters tall. So there are some qualities that they are inside your genetics. Some qualities are going to be affected by the surrounded. So your environment, the people that you're talking to, the people that they talk to you when you're a kid, the music that you're listening to, the movies that you're watching. There are so many components that they can affect somebody else's voices. But yes, there are some characteristics that, I don't know, for example, if you think about a gospel voice or a jazz voice or a rock voice, you can also kind of locate it geographically.
What do you mean
Does
by
that make
low?
sense? Um, Big difference, I don't know, between West End and Broadway. Same thing, two different locations. When I listen to them, I immediately understand which one is Broadway, which one is West End. Not just by the accent, by a series of components of influences, style, cadences, colors, that maybe they're more close to a US music background than a UK music background. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does, because I've personally had it where I had it in the gym the other day. Someone said to me, I'm not going to say where I'm from because I don't want people looking me up, but someone says, "You're not from this area." And I said, "I know, I'm from somewhere else. I just was raised in this area."
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of tell.
You can kind of tell. Of course, it's not a fixed rule that is always working like that. Voices are beautiful because they are all different. But if you think about the big stereotypes, I don't know, in my case, Italian, right? So neo-melodic drama, you can kind of, it's a stereotype, but you can kind of link it to it. If you tell me, I don't know, Bollywood soundtracks, they are really twangy, they are all really high pitched. I mean, you can immediately hear that sound in your head. So, yes, there are some characteristics that are shaped by the environment where you grow up, people that you're talking to, and the general background surrounding you, education, school, so many factors. Where you travel, what did you experience in your life? Everything can have an effect on the voice.
Can people by choice choose how their voice sounds? So you said someone's voice is influenced by the movies they watch, the games, the music. If they wanted to change their own voice, could they obviously could they do it by changing what they listen to? Because I know what you read, what you eat, what you could basically what you consume influences you. Yeah, okay, you might go and do something as a conclusion, but that's always going to be an external factor.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, you cannot change some aspect of your voice, so you cannot change the timbre of your voice. The voice is one of the few things, like the fingerprints and the eye thing, that it's unique, so they cannot reproduce it. That's why they can use it as a password, vocal password, because you can emulate a voice, but you cannot replicate it. So every voice is really peculiar to you. Can it be changed? It can be shaped. Silly example, when you laugh and when you cry, you sound like two different person because your voice is really different when you laugh and when you cry, but your vocal cords are doing exactly the same thing. So you can color your voice in a specific way, but the essence of your voice, the you in your voice, is gonna be you. You cannot change it. You can probably change it with hormones. It's probably one of the few things that they can change the constitution of your voice because they're going to affect the physical instrument. But with training, vocal exercise, you can change the resonance of that. You can change how controlled it is. You can expand the vocal register. You can do whatever. But again, if I go to the gym, I cannot become 2 meters tall. So there are some qualities that are going to be like that.
Okay, so is it kind of like, to use your example with the gym, it's you
Mm.
can go to the gym, which I do. You can go to the gym, you can put on muscle, and in the same way with your voice, you can strengthen and change your vocal stance. but you can't change certain things, like say your height or your temper, or if you were born with a deformity where instead of two thumbs,
There we
you were
go.
born two thumbs, seven fingers, or I've just put up all my fingers.
Yeah,
But
yeah, there are all examples that they're all valid. Is exactly like that. Some characteristic you need to cope with that, and if you don't like them, well, it's a process that you need to go through. It's a really silly example, but when you look yourself in the mirror, you cannot. I mean, you can put makeup, you can do a little bit of correction surgery, whatever, but then you're gonna stay like that. It's not that you can be another person. It would be like, oh, I want someone else's face. Fine. You need to find a solution because you cannot.
or you need to find a way to adapt it to where you're comfortable with. Have you ever heard of the book Psychokinesis by Max? Oh, what's his surname? Begins with an M. It basically talks about some people like change their appearance, and some people like he was a plastic surgeon. This
Mm.
guy. Some people would go in and I've not read the book. I've only heard briefings from other people. Some people go in for plastic surgery and say to get their nose done. They have a nose done and they're happy with it. But other people would go in, have a nose done, and come out like, oh, I actually don't like it. And is it kind of like the same thing with people's voices? In the same, some people would go to a vocal coach to change that voice, but some come out liking it, but some don't because they're trying to get a certain voice of a certain person. If that makes sense.
Yeah, touch of reality. That's probably the most difficult aspect that I need to sort out, especially with beginners. That they have an idea of how they should sound, but it's an idea made up by their brain. So it's not actually how they should sound, it's more how they would like to be heard. It's, if you put it on the aesthetic, it's how I would like to be seen by you.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's not really how I look, how I get perceived. So it's already a step forward. You need to do a step back and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You cannot control the way you get perceived. I mean, you can affect it, but you cannot really control it. It's the other person that is seeing you anyway.
Sure.
Same thing with you.
Is it kind of like chasing the horizon? You're never going to reach the horizon, sort of thing. Like you're chasing the idea in your head, but you're never right. Okay.
Yeah, and plus, again, throw it back in the gym. Is there any point that you're like, okay, it's done? It's a process. I mean, it's not something that you do and you close the door and it's done. It's something that you decide to do and you're doing it constantly. It's like going in the gym. If you stop for a year, the muscles is gonna become less build up and blah blah blah. Same thing with your voice. But again, I never find anybody that after the training it was like, I want my voice like it was before, because it's not gonna change your voice. Again, oh come on, man! Have you ever find anybody that after the gym is like, I want to become like I was before? Because it's gonna make you feel not just aesthetically, but because it's going to make you feel you healthier. Same thing with your vocal training. Your voice is gonna feel more healthier. So it's not just an aesthetic point of view; it's the way of feeling. If you want to put it like that. So first of all, I never transformed a person's voice because, in my opinion, you cannot. You can shape it, but you cannot transform it. So it's not irreversible.
What's the best way for someone to shape their voice then? If they can't change it, how can they shape it towards that desired ideal? So instead of them chasing the horizon, they say chase. They chase like not the cat because the cat always gets away, but you know what I mean. They chase something they can actually get in a way where it's still an image in their head, but it's actually attainable in regardless. Well, in regards.
But why should you do that?
Well, in my case, I generally do not like my voice. I've been like this for years, personally. So in my case, and I always have this a rule where if I want something, I have to want it for X amount of time before I go get it, which for me it works really well because it eliminates impulse buying or purchases. So say if I randomly want to get like a jacket, I go, okay, do I actually want the jacket? And give it a few weeks. If I still want the jacket, I go get the jacket.
Yeah.
And it's also my case, okay, I have a bit, I'm not looking for pity, I'm not looking for sympathy. My backstory's not great, and my voice is a reflection of that. So I kind of have a desire to change it. It's been like this for years, but how can if someone's in like a similar position to me where they say they've had their voice for say 5 years and they just don't like it for whatever reason, maybe they just don't like how they're perceived because of it, or maybe they do their voice actor but they don't like how when they're putting on performances for the characters they're acting as, they don't quite like how it comes out. Maybe it sounds a bit
Yeah.
too. Maybe they're doing like like an anime dub for a Japanese setting, but they sound too Western, and they want to kind of tweak it to that kind of thing.
So you're putting on the table a lot of variables. Let's go through that 1 second. You don't like your voice. Good, fair enough. 99% of the people, they don't like their voices. Put yourself in front of a mirror and again tell me you don't like your face. We are back to the same point. So that's an aesthetic point of view, and it would be more a brain journey that we should approach. So it's not the case of you changing your voice, it's you changing the perception again of your voice. Why do you want to change your voice? I can be really blunt with you sound really good. There's nothing that in your voice makes me think like, oh, there is a mechanic issue, so the voice sounds weird. You don't have a disconnection or a nodule or an edema or something that I'm like, oh my God, the voice sounds rusty or smoky or broken or damaged somehow. You're touching an aesthetic point of view. Again, it's really personal. Why don't you like your voice? I should ask you that. Okay. Instead of why you wanting to like your voice, why don't you like it?
For me personally, I sound too much like the child I'm trying to. I'm sounding too much like the child the inner child I'm trying to kill. That's the best way I can put it, because this is going to be really hard to describe without going into my backstory.
Right.
Pardon?
Try it.
Right. So the child I want to leave behind basically led me to becoming addicted with video games. I actually became overweight where I had to lose a ton of it. I still struggle with it today. I have issues with addiction. Yes, I'm going to go and see a therapist. I've got a consultation booked and all that. I also let too much time pass. For the past 4 years, recently I used to live in a leaving care placement. I let too much time pass, and that was kind of like me regressing into more of a child, and my voice is kind of a reflection of that. It's like, well, no, I actually want to take responsibility for my life and actually grow up. And people say to me, oh, you're 24, you're still young. It's like, I don't feel young at all. Yeah, to be blunt, I've always been like that. It's like, yeah, I'm not young.
I get you, totally get you.
Yeah, so I'm in the sense of like, well, and I struggle with killing my former self. Like, for me personally, I haven't lately because of the show, but I was selling my old video games at the side. Yeah, I'm in the middle of killing my old self so the new self can flourish, and my voice is still a reflection of my old self. It's like
go to Nick. Huh? Go to Nick for an hour. Go to Nick for an hour. Are you in London?
I can do it online. I'm not in London.
You're not in London. If you were in London, you should come to Nick for an hour. Let's get to some exercise on the keyboard. Let's check where your voice is placed. And let's see what is your voice, because I'm sure that you have no idea where your voice is placed on the scales, where it should resonate, where it should not. Again, from a person who never heard you before, your voice is perfectly fine to hear. It's also a nice tone, actually. So if that can put you to a nice
pitch as well. I mean, people have commented to that on the past, but that's something I've Okay, I've definitely taken this part from other people, but something I've noticed as well, it might be a bit of insecurity with that as well. Do you think in my case it's that Maxwell? That's his surname, Maxwell, Max Maltz thing of like I'm going to go and get vocal training, but no matter what, I'm never going to be satisfied with it.
No, why you shouldn't?
No, because I keep trying to change it over and over again. I just can never get the idea. What I'm trying.
No, because sooner or later, I will implant. I will do my best to implant in your brain the fact that you should not change your voice.
Why should people optimize not to change their voice?
You
Like,
can
just
train it.
here's an example to answer the question.
So in your case, you can train it. You can make it sound more resonating. You can remove a little bit of nasal resonance. You can work on the aesthetic of that. But again, why should you change it? You don't have any speech impediment that need to be sorted or any cracking sound. Why don't you just cope with your voice, finding out what the positive aspects are and not what the negative linked ideas of your inner child and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you find your voice today? How does it sound? It's not going to sound like an inner child because you went through the mute of the voice when you were 11 or 12 or whatever. You change the voice, right? You got the broke of the voice, the voice broke up. It means that you went from a child voice to a adult voice, let's call it like that. Physically, your voice now, it cannot be the one that you had when you were a kid. So just the knowledge of that and seeing the difference. I show you when you were a kid, you were sounding that. I'm touching my keyboard. When you are an adult, you're sounding here. Can you see the difference of placements on the keyboard? And you're gonna be like, oh.
No.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see it. Oh, come on, man. If I
This is good for the show.
Here in the high or here in the low, you're gonna see it. Like on the keyboard, you're gonna see where the voice is. It's not just gonna be in your brain. You're actually gonna see it. You can give it a measure. You can give it a dimension. It's not just, oh, my voice. Now, if I ask you what is your highest, lowest, and most comfortable place, you have no idea. You're just using that as a backup function that you are able to use. That you might like it or not, but you're having a conversation with me, so you're using it. Question: do you know what you're doing? No, because we don't. 99% of the people, they have no idea of what is happening while you're having a conversation. What are the muscles implied? And then eventually you're gonna get to, oh, the aesthetic of my voice. I sound like a duck. Number one, are you sounding really like a duck or you think you're sounding like a duck? Let's check it together. Okay, we get to the point that you're sounding like a duck. What can we do in order to remove the ducky sound? Or you sound too nasal, or you sound, I don't know, you can sound ovular. A lot of people, they raise the soft palate. A lot of people, they go disconnected. We all have some vocal attitude that they can be changed. Again, it's not going to change your voice. So my suggestion is cope with that, because myself as well, when I'm going to look back at this video, I'm going to hate my accent and the way I speak. When I look back to students' lesson and whatever, I'm like, do I really sound like that? Oh my God. But I'm used to it. So I'm like, okay, just take it and that's it.
When you're working with your students, what do you primarily focus to improve their voice with them? What's the areas where where do you primarily focus? Because for me, if you were to take me, it'd just be like upgrade, improve, it'd be like going to the gym. But with the students, that actually got an end goal with it. So what do you work towards?
Well, try to split the list in two categories. People that are doing it as a career, so that they need a more accurate training, in my opinion, and people that are doing more as a fun activity, so it doesn't need to be so hard, maybe it can be a little bit more flexible. So majority of the case, in both of the cases, I will keep vocal health as a main priority. So the health of your instrument, giving you the keys in order to be able to sing without causing any damage, to start with that. and that's usually placement. Breathing has a major impact on that, and all the exercise that you might have heard online, ma, 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 pa, 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 we, all these lovely kind of things. There is all the exercises that you would do in the gym. And then there is the singing practice, and that's more aesthetic point of view, stylistic point of view, where expression, emotion, words is not an exercise anymore. It becomes a beautiful painting with a lot of details. If you are a professional singer, I might be really annoying on precision. If you are singing for fun, I might be more flexible on some aspect and maybe focus more on emotional point of view, how to release emotion, how to get in touch with your voice, with the essence of your voice. That would be the thing that I would do with you. How to get you comfort, not liking it, your voice, but comfortable enough to be like, okay, I can be my own voice without having such an issue of liking it or not.
Sure. So with those who are a bit more career orientated, it's a bit more of a, I don't want to say crash course, but it's a lot more intense because for them
Yeah.
it's they actually need to get this right because otherwise they're not going to pay the bill, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep in mind that I work with a lot of different categories of professional singer. There is the professional singer that is working in a studio environment, and then there is a professional singer that is working on a touring environment, so constantly gigging. Two completely different training approach. One is more built on stamina, one is more built on one shot, one go, so precision. It's again, it depends a lot on what is my student going to do. Does he need to perform a lot? So we need to work on how much singing you're doing a day, how long you can last without impacting your voice. A singer that needs to play an hour and a half every night is not like a singer that needs to do a show a month. I have some students that they gig almost every night. That must be really heavy, actually.
So with those who are gigging every night, you're essentially it's more endurance because they've got to keep that vocal tone.
Yes.
But if it's like a monthly thing where there's a lot of prep work and then they sing, it's more about okay, it's not so much we're going to optimize for recovery, we're going to optimize for performance because this is a one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And then see again the goal. Are you fixing a performance for an audition? So it's going to be a really short amount of time and you need to show a lot of things in 30 seconds. Or do you need to express something throughout an hour and a half and you need to keep it there? Are you doing covers? Are you doing your originals? I mean, there are so many factors that they can influence the different training. Plus, the human factor is not that I open the book and we all work in the same way and the voices are fixed with the magic wand and that's it. Sometimes it's complicated from my side as well to understand what is the best approach of training. Consider the goal that my student asked me. If they ask me for an audition in West End, probably I will focus on something more than something else. But always back to the goal.
Yeah, so in my case, as someone who chose to become a podcaster as the entrepreneurial journey, my training would be very different to someone who's a voice actor.
Yes.
Constantly has to change their voice to fit the role because you can't do a one size fits all model with them, but with me it's you can, but it needs a bit more tweaking to where it sounds nicer on the ears.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not being asked to do a character voice. In your podcast, I imagine you want to come out as you. So you're not masking the voice as an actor. In this moment, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, so my voice is pretty informal. I'm not feeling like the pressure of a formal situation. But I'm sure that if we put ourselves in a really formal environment, we will sound a little bit different. Probably a little more less colorful from my side, less Italian. So it would be less shouty and a little bit more British.
It's a bit more down to earth in that regard if we're in more of a okay.
Yeah, it's also depending on the tone, where you are, what you're doing. If I'm on the BBC live streaming, I'm probably gonna be a little bit more under pressure than not a video that we're talking about something that I'm really comfortable about, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel that pressure, so my voice comes really natural. I imagine that that's going to be your goal, to come really natural with your voice. I wouldn't do like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It would sound really...
I'll just go over people's heads like, yeah, what's the next thing?
Next question.
Yeah. Oh, this is shite. Let's move on to the next one.
But again, from now on, please try to listen to your voice when you're laughing and when you are, I don't know, talking to the phone with a new person that you need to interview for the first time and blah, blah, blah. Notice how it's already changing and shaping without even you being so aware of that.
Yeah, because the voice, your demeanor. I spoke with two of my friends who's was a body language coach. He's now doing full-on coaching. He said our body, like we have to change our body language given the situation. Does our voice kind of do that automatically?
What do you mean?
So if you're in a situation where you need to be more authoritative, your voice, because you're changing your demeanor to be more authoritative, your voice will change to match that. But if you're in a situation where you need to be more submissive to potentially survive, your voice will change to that. If you're trying to be a bit more romantic with your partner, you get where I'm going with this. So your voice will, when you change your demeanor to match the setting, your voice, okay.
That's usually happening naturally. The problem comes out when you need to do something that it's unnatural for you. So, for example, I don't know, you speaking instead of just one by one in front of 1,000 people. Business people, for example, that need to do public speech or team speech or whatever. A lot of business people, they come because they cannot stand a normal public speech. Their voices becomes absolutely fragile and not projected, and they swallow it, and it doesn't sound, and it shakes, and everything. So in that case, it doesn't happen really naturally. Actually, it doesn't happen at all. So you need to get a coach and get it out. I'm sure that if you find a tiger behind you and you need to scream for help, somehow your body's gonna get it. Try to understand the situation. When you are in a danger situation, I assume it's gonna work naturally. You don't have to think a lot about screaming for help. It just comes out.
It's like,
yeah, and that's probably adrenaline. Again, the brain has a massive control on that. It's not just your voice doing it. It's probably the rush of adrenaline, the effect that there's on the muscles, and blah blah blah. It's not just, oh, I'm getting louder. It can be exactly the opposite when you need to do a public speech. You have the same amount of adrenaline, but you have the reverse of the effect. Your voice blocks and doesn't actually come out.
I just thought, what if it's partly an evolutionary thing, like comes from our caveman days, where we had to kind of, well, different situations. Sometimes we're safe, sometimes we're going out hunting, sometimes tiger. And it might have just evolved because of that, and those who could actually adapt their vocal cords. It might have, we don't know.
Think about that primarily, our voice is not being born to be a voice. I mean, the thing that it makes the voice is actually a pressurizing mechanics. So it pressurizes your body, for example, when you need to lift something really heavy. You're gonna make a pressure so you can hold something. So it doesn't really born as a communication tool. It's just that as human, we understood that it can be a modulation of vocals and blah, blah, blah. but it's not being born for communicating. It's being born to pressurize and breathe.
Oh, so we've adapted our vocal
Neuro.
cords. Right, so we've taken something which was intended for one thing and used it to communicate.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And at the beginning, remember that there was no words. So it was literally probably phonetic sounds and phonetic I don't know what they were doing, but it was definitely non-language communication at the beginning. So try to imagine and deconstruct everything in the contemporary scenario and remove from the voice the words, the contemporary feelings and expression and blah, blah, blah. Try to go back and see the naked voice. What was the voice? The purpose of that was probably shouting from a side to another to call somebody else or to make a signal or something. It was not definitely to have a conversation at the beginning. Then evolution, years, words, language, blah, 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 blah. And we got to the structure of the contemporary language. Still, the voice comes from possibly birds, the structure of the larynx. Evolutionary comes probably from birds. Birds, they were not flying at the beginning, they were just chicken. They couldn't fly. And then they developed the larynx structure, kind of a larynx structure that it can create pressure and it can pressurizing the body, flying. That thing broke up in two so they can expel more pressure. That was a nice example. Please send me that because I want it. They can release pressure and they can pressurize even more. And that came down to humans somehow. But again, it's not being born as a communication method.
That's quite interesting. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to picture, because the popular theory is we came from apes. And
yeah, but then apes don't have enunciations, right? They have a vocal system.
Yeah, but then we would have taken our vocal system from apes, because like I said, we modified our vocal cords or vocal system to develop a language, even as you said, it wasn't originally intended for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to think how logically we could get the vocal cords from a bird if we evolved from an ape, because one can fly and the other can't.
The missing how do you call it? The missing thing in the chain.
DNA.
No. When you miss a piece of puzzle, we're not sure exactly that we come from apes.
Yeah,
not 100% sure, right?
Mm.
There are some components that they are present in reptiles from dinosaurs, for example. Some of the dinosaurs, they had larynx structure. So who comes from who? Does that make sense? Yeah, we probably come from apes, but this structure comes from reptiles that they eventually evolved in birds or whatever there was before the dinosaurs.
Sure, unless apes evolved from birds and then we evolved from apes. That could be the missing link.
That could be. We don't know exactly how
bizarre,
we become human, right?
Yeah, pterodactyls. It's like, yeah, it could be. That's a possibility. There is I know scientists are kind of hesitant to go with this theory because it throws out everything we've been taught. But there is a theory that suggests before we came along, before the Egyptians, before the Greeks, before all of that, there was actually another more civilized society on Earth. Now, here's how it works. Then, like the meteor or whatever came down, hit Earth, and then it just destroyed everything. And then we evolved from square one, and that's why we've got a bit of barbaricism. It sounds bizarre, but I can't remember when, but scientists found like this weird structure off the coast of Japan. And the thing that really stuck out to people was A, it was underwater, it was off the coast, and B, the structure had clearly been man-made. Because all like the walls and the corners and that, they were perfectly even. They were not... They didn't form over time. They were too perfect for people to go, yeah, the sea did that. It's like, no, someone did that.
Okay, and this one is a beautiful question and we'll never find an answer to. And I'm probably on that side, like, yeah, it could be. that there was something like a really evolved civilization before us, and how many could there have been in million of years between the dinosaur and us? Good. We will never find an answer. Probably not in the next few years. So try to see it more easy. Turtles, they come long before humans, and turtles, they have a really visible vocal cords. If you, have you ever watched? Oh my God! Please put that in the video. Don't cut it. Have you ever seen the video, the viral video of the two turtles having sex?
No, I have. God,
Please go and check it out. You can see basically the turtle. And then I'm gonna explain you that. I'm gonna explain that. It sounds really funny, but I'm gonna explain you that. You're gonna literally see the guy turtle doing and being really happy about that. And you can visibly see the vocal structure of the turtle, that it's really similar to what we have in our larynx. Go and check it out, man. So that's the point. The turtles have that larynx, the same structure that we have, and they evolved a lot before than us. Like turtles are coming along before humans, right?
Yeah,
you can cut that, right? But
I'll
later on, I'm
totally
gonna send you.
know
I'm gonna
what's with
send
the
you. I'm
turtle
gonna send you the
fucking.
turtle having sex because it's really cool, man. You absolutely need to see it, and you can see the vocal cords working. Okay, probably I should have put an introduction to that with the question of have you ever seen how the vocal cords works?
Yes,
and then going
disclaimer.
to the turtle example.
Very late disclaimer. We're going to talk about turtle. Fucking.
Yeah, put it in the description. It's gonna give you some how do you say the
I don't
hashtag
think
sex.
that'll fly.
But I'm sure that if I send you a picture of my vocal cords and a picture of that turtle, you're gonna see some resemblance at least. And it's impressive if you think that the turtle actually comes a long time before humans.
That's the same with crocodiles and alligators, isn't it? They can't.
No, I'm not sure about the crocodiles if they have vocal cords or larynx. I'm
talking like the age of the species. Yeah. I'm not talking about their vocal cords. They've been around
exactly.
for a long time as well.
That's a long time before humans. That's why I'm like, yeah, okay, by the apes. But then at the end, they don't have vocalizations. So birds have a vocalization in tune, right?
But then so do dogs, cats, pet rodents.
Not sure they have a vocal cords like human.
Some variation, although it would just be like a little. Oh, my neighbour's got a cat, so all it does is chirps, basically.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they have vocal cords. They don't do that sound with vocal cords.
No, true, they're quite loud.
I'm kind of sure about that.
Cats definitely do. I mean, they can control their meow, where they can emphasize a letter of when they say meow. Because I know, which one is it? I forget which, but I know they emphasize the E. I think it's the E. They want something. If it's the O, it's something more. No, the M's more pleasant. It's either E or O where they want attention. And it's the other way for a different one, and the W is kind of more like sort of thing. They can control their vocals.
And they can control the sound.
Yeah, but that's
I'm not sure they have vocals. I'm gonna Google that if they have vocals.
Because I know cats can control them, how they pronounce their meow. So that strikes me as more they do have vocals, but more.
Let me ask you Google.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do cats? Yeah. I'm really curious now.
Yeah. Because where I live, I got a cat. Well, not my cat, but we've got a cat, which I nicknamed the corner shop kitty, and she's always there. Yeah, naughty little thing, but it's very much when I see it. I know it can control its meow to some extent.
Yes, cat has vocal cords, 2 vocal cords.
Yeah,
actually, that they work in conjunction with trachea and epiglottis. That more or less like us, actually.
Yeah, but
so maybe we've taken that from cats, and they're gonna rule the world in the future. Who knows?
I mean, there are videos of cats actually saying words, but not. Yeah, I know, it's like the old words. Just like
of course, I've seen them. Yeah. Man, I've seen the turtle. Of course, I've seen the cats talking.
But it's definitely
Even more impressive, you need to hear the parrots singing.
yeah. I would assume well, parrots and birds they'll have vocal cords as well,
And they can reproduce actually words. It's really cool.
but they do have to listen. They're basically mimics, aren't they? Because they have to listen
Yeah.
to the words, then say it. They can't do what we can do, where well, then technically speaking, we're kind of similar because we listen to our parents, we listen to our environment. It's just a lot more easier for us to do it as opposed to parrots.
Yeah, and we know what we're doing. They have no clue.
Hmm.
It's like for us reproducing the sound of a bird. We're reproducing the sound, but we have no idea if we are saying anything in the bird language. So the parrot doesn't know that it's actually doing words. It's just making sounds,
It's basically a mirror,
but it doesn't
isn't
have the
it?
consciousness of, oh, I'm singing a song.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically a mirror, isn't it? Because or like a mimic that just mirrors because it will listen to a like someone talking a word and then it will repeat it. Did you ever see that video of a parrot who listened to an entire murder and was able to repeat it back? Yeah, it was really, apparently someone I didn't double check this before I explain what this is, but there was a parrot who was able to get someone done for murder because they overheard the entire thing and it was able to it literally repeated everything word by word, including it mimicked a bang with its own.
Can you imagine that? How unlucky you need to be to kill somebody with a parrot that it can reproduce everything. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some videos where they sing "Chandelier" by Sia, and it's like, what the heck? They sound like birds. It really sounds like
Yeah.
birds.
Could you imagine that? It's like, how did you get caught? My pet parrot repeated everything. And someone just recorded it as well. It's quite.
A parrot destroyed my life. Oh boy.
And the worst part is you can't exactly sue an animal, can you? Even if it does turn out to be false.
No, you cannot, and try to kill it after that. It's really interesting, though, how we started with singers in training with career and blah blah blah, and we landed in animals.
You brought it up.
I brought it up. Yeah, my fault. But it was an interesting point.
Yeah.
Well, the evolution of the voice. Yeah, now we talk about that with a lot of fun and blah blah blah. But actually, there's some answers that we cannot have, including the evolutionary process. So, yeah, we can question that, but at the end of it all, we know what we have and how it works. I will start from that instead of where did we get it from? Who the hell cares? You have it, try to use it, and try to understand how to make that mechanics an instrument, because we want to use it as an instrument, not because it is made to be an instrument.
Why do you think we have that desire to use it as an instrument, although we don't? It's kind of like what we've done with our vocal cords is we've been over this before, but we've entirely repurposed a thing to something else. It's like if I was to buy a hammer for a nail, but instead of typically use a hammer in build stuff, but instead of using it to build stuff, I just use it for an art project. Yeah, you can.
That's what I was reflecting. That's what I wanted to ask you. Why do we paint? So we are using arms and fingers and blah 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 that they're not made for painting. It's not the primary purpose of that. But out of that, we made artistic expression, and probably, I'm not sure, but I think it will lead back to the need of expression for the human being that I don't think that a cat has, for example. That's really human, right? The need of expressing an emotion. We've done that for always and ever, from the painting in the rocks, telling a story. Even just telling a story could be already the point, right?
I think in that case is because something I learned from an artist, not on the show. This was before I even considered doing a podcast. Was He told me because I had this old business idea to do a cinematography thing. I just gave up on that. To be honest, I wasn't into it and that kind of thing. But he said to me like I had an idea to have two swords pointing down like this, like a cross.
Mm.
And he said to me, "No, the problem with that is that that shows weakness, that shows defeat, and that's kind of like a form of symbolism." And what I've
Mm.
kind of learned through storytelling and media in general is like how we present ourselves is a symbolism of who we are. So like the
Yeah.
clothes we wear, how we have our hair, how we present ourselves, whether you're in shape, not overweight, and I think our vocal cords also play to that as well because. Yeah, like I said, like we discussed earlier, you can tell someone's background from how they sound. There's something
Yeah.
really interesting with accents I learned where if you took someone from, say, another country but raised them in a different country, but they had the
Mm-hmm.
same accent, they're going to get a
Mm-hmm.
lot better with people in that area than if they were born and raised in their home country, then moved to
Yeah.
the country, because subconsciously we think alien because they sound different to us.
Different.
So I think it's more like an expression of where we're from as well.
Yeah, and it's probably more common now than before.
What do you mean?
For example, in music, at least I can relate to music, right? Accents are not really popular. You don't hear a lot of singer with strong accents. I mean, you can understand if you have a US or a British singer, I can kind of get it. But a lot of the time, you cannot locate the singer. It's like an Italian singer. We have, let's say, the common pronunciation, the general Italian pronunciation. There is no specific of an area. And that's happening also for singers, I imagine.
Difficulties with because you're
No,
Italy.
not really. I never care about that. That's another point of view. Is like, as my accent conditioned me as a singer, yes, not as a vocal coach.
Okay.
But it was more probably my problem looking back at that. When I arrived to London, I think that the most difficult thing that I had to cope with was my accent. And you can blend it, you can try to remove it, you can try to fix it, you can go to many teachers, blah, blah, blah. At the end of it all, my Italian accent is still there. Um, it's like you don't liking your voice. What should you do? Should you get desperate about it or should you try to cope? Get along with that.
Yeah, I guess I know someone, I won't say who, but who actually went to a coach because they wanted to sound more British, and their response
Mm,
that they got was like, "Yeah, you'll sound British, but you'll kind of sound, how do I say this? Like,
ridiculous.
yeah, basically,
Forced. Yeah, it sounds like.
yeah." It was like if
I,
it's
I,
not just sticking. It's like if because I'm British, just throwing it out there, it'd be like
that's the point. You're gonna sound British to who's not really British because if you're really British, you're gonna notice immediately that
yeah,
I'm
it'd be like
anyway
if
I'm
I tried to
Italian, even
change
if
to a
I put the accent.
Canadian. It'd be like if I tried to change to a Canadian accent, and the response I'm going to get is like, "Yeah, you sound Canadian, but you sound like an absolute moron."
Yeah, and my answer with a lot of students, I noticed that they have this problem with the accent, and I get it. It was my problem as well. Um, are people gonna be able to understand what I'm saying? That was my main concern. And then it came out, oh, is that reflecting when I'm singing then? Because when I was in Italy, it was not even a question. My pronunciation, it was English. They don't even speak English, so it's fine. It's when I arrived in London that I noticed that, oh, that doesn't sound like the TV show that I was looking at. I was like, why? Oh, there is a US English and a UK English, and they sound pretty different. Um, from that moment, I realized, oh, there are accents in the word. And the same song is sung by me and a British person, a USA person, and a Chinese person. They sound a little bit different, and that was totally
They're kind
fine,
of
probably.
conflate. I can't speak for anyone else, but myself, but I've not had a problem understanding you with your Italian accent. It's
Good.
like, yeah, no, it's like, I mean, to be honest, I notice it, but it's like, what does that do for me, or what does it do for me to have an issue?
No,
It's like,
but Oh, try to see my point of view. Now it's 12 years that I live in the UK, and probably language barrier is not there anymore. Uh, Put yourself in my shoes for a second. You go to a country with the idea that in a couple of months your brain is going to pick up the language and everything is going to go smooth. No, guys, I can tell you it doesn't happen really like that. It takes at least a year and a half to be able to, at least that was my case. Maybe I'm not super smart in languages, but it took me a year and a half to be comfortable enough to charge you for a lesson in your language. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There was literally a barrier of many words, specific muscles that I didn't know the names of. That was a big issue for me in the beginning. Then I sorted out that people can understand me, and I'm like, okay, good. So it's fine. But at the beginning, has been annoying.
It'd be like me.
It was more in my head, probably.
It'd be like me trying to do what you did when you came to the UK, and then because I read on your website you only coached Italians when you first came. It'd be like me doing that if I went.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be kind of before you built up that confidence to actually include English, but speaking people. It'd be like me doing that if I was to say go to Sweden. It's like I will only interview people
There we go.
English in Sweden, and not I'm going to take the time to actually interview some Swedish people.
Yes, it's exactly like that. So at the beginning, I stepped down and I was like, okay, let's start to teach in my own language first. Then I opened up classes to Spanish people because it's not difficult for me to understand and speak Spanish. It was really similar to my language, and it was the more intuitive to start with external people, if you want to say it like that. In Italy, I've always been teaching Italian, like no other language, no other background culture, all Italian, everything Italian. That's it. It's kind of simple, if you want to say it like that.
Familiar.
Then I had also the other side of the coin. I had people that maybe just arrived to London with a strong accent that I was like, whoa, that's a strong accent. Sometimes I couldn't perfectly understand what they were saying, or they didn't have the language skill to ask me a proper question. And sometimes it's language barrier can be annoying, not just for me, for everybody. But a lot of people, they don't take that in consideration. How long does it take you to develop language, and how complicated it could be to shift your language more than your culture, probably.
I think it also plays into who's around you as well, because I've had it a few times at my not my current gym, my old gym. We had some people who weren't from the UK, but they were speaking their dialect, and there was a case of, what are you saying? But when it's like it's that accent thing I mentioned earlier. It's like I don't understand you, so internally I wasn't even know why I was doing this. I was thinking you're a threat because I don't understand if you. They didn't. They were actually quite friendly, to be fair to them. But I was subconsciously thinking, you're a threat because I can't understand you, and if you're planning to attack me, I won't know. But
Can't understand you.
but if it was English people, if they spoke English, it'll be like, okay, I know what you're up to, I can prepare, and then I can proceed.
I'm in a safer place. Yeah, of course.
I understand your point of view.
Guys, sometimes I spent months in this city being surrounded by native language people speaking with themselves, and me completely not understanding a bloody thing that was coming out of their mouth. And sometimes it felt really frustrating because there was a complete lack of communication. Imagine again yourself being surrounded by people not speaking your language, and you trying to grasp something that you heard in a TV show or something with a completely different accent, with people coming with their own different accents. So when I started to work in the UK, I worked in a place with a lot of people from Japan, and they had their own flexion, and a lot of customers that was from India, and they had their own flexion. So my brain was completely freaking out about, oh, I don't understand what people are saying to me. That's a big problem.
I also think as well, what you would it be fair in saying is that you had to learn English in order to quickly to blend in, or at least get understand the environment? Because if you don't know, and London's a big city. I don't know its population, or I don't know its population from 12 years ago. Really should have looked that up. But you've got all these people in London. It's definitely very populated, and you don't know who's there. They're not all going to be friendly. I mean, you hear the horror stories of like knife attack, like knife stabbings or knife crime up in London. You just don't know if you say something in the wrong language. You might say, "Hey, can you pick that apple for me?" And they,
No, no. At least in my own experience, I found London a really safe place. I've traveled in few cities and few countries and whatever. I don't know. The main comparison that I could do between the cities linked me with New York. I found New York a lot more dangerous. If I should imagine myself in the same situation, so moving the countries, going in a city that I've never been in, and blah blah blah, I think that London is relatively a safe place. I never found myself in such dangerous situations, and that I was like, oh my god, my language is creating a problem, like an issue. Like I can be in danger because I'm saying something stupid or because I don't understand exactly what they're saying. No, I never felt like that, to be honest. I felt more there. I know it sounds really strange, but in Portugal, for example.
Portugal?
Yeah, I don't speak Portuguese, but I traveled to Portugal. And I found myself in, I don't know, some situation where I was like, okay, the lack of communication is making me feel not safe because the people surrounding me or the situation that I was in. In London, I never found that. I never felt in danger because of no understanding or not being able to communicate. So
Right. So it's more. It depends on the place and where you are. Not.
I found London really open to that, to different languages, different culture. I never felt excluded because I couldn't communicate. That was just my feeling. I can't communicate with you, so I'm frustrated, but I never felt the exclusion of people because I was not speaking their language. Actually, they were including me and they were pushing me to learn it even faster.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was no, that was wonderful. So my own experience with that has been absolutely fantastic. I've learned English with people coming from all over the world. When I arrived in London, I shared my flat with 12, 13 people. I don't remember that. And we were coming from everywhere. Bogota, Lithuania. I don't even remember. Israel. They were coming from everywhere. So we all had a broken English and we were all trying to fix it, step it up, blah, blah, blah. And we were anchoring to British people and we were sucking out the English language out of them. It's been a really fun process.
Well, like you're
To be
leeching
honest.
off the English language.
Yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
It's been really challenging and really fun.
Who would you say is the most common profession that you work with? So you mentioned you work a lot with singers, but you've also worked with business people. Do you also, with other professions like podcasters, voice actors, or maybe ASMR artists, would you say it's an even across the board, or would you say it's more there's more of one, there's some more, it's just a complete landslide of another, but you get the
No, I work with a lot of actors. I work with a lot of actors, but because they need to jump in characters and sometimes they don't know how to modify their voice or to shape the sound like they want and blah, blah, blah. As a profession, I work with a lot of teachers, school teachers,
okay.
because after years, they find their voice that is not sounding like it was before, is kind of tired out, burned out. The people that they use a lot their voices, they tend to have a sensitive approach to that, and they notice the change of that. And so they're like, "Ooh, my voice doesn't sound like before. What happened?" And probably majority of the time is just the wrong approach to a vocality. So you use your voice in a not really safe way, and it's a little bit like when you injure yourself in the gym. You don't create a long-lasting injury, but you're not doing correctly. So,
I think
does that make any sense?
yeah, because in their case, oh, you injured your voice. Tough luck. You've got to be in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the rest of the
Well,
time.
let's say
And
that.
we've got after half term. Never mind the other term that's coming up, and they've got to do it constantly. It's not like if you go to the gym where you go, oh, I've really done my knee in, I need to take 2 weeks off. If they do the voice in, tough, especially with the teacher
Yeah,
shortages as well.
there we go. Beautiful example. My mom. In the years, she was a primary school teacher, and in the years, I noticed the voice getting broken, like literally broken. She was teaching kids, she was shouting Italian. "Ah, la, la, la." Can you imagine that? When she retired, in less than a year, her voice recovered almost completely without even seeing me as a coach or anybody else. So the prolonged wrong use of the voice, it can lead to problem, but it doesn't mean that it leads to damage. It can be just a wrong attitude that you can correct it a little bit without leading to voice loss or nodules or anything.
How would you train teachers then? Would you prioritize recovery over actual vocal techniques? Because they've got the vocal technique right. Okay.
I would work with exercises that they use in vocal therapy. So a lot of take an example of people for some reason losing the speech after an accident, after injuries, illness, stroke, ictus, whatever you want. They need to recover the ability of speech, so literally the mechanics. And for absurd, that's a really healthy process because you learn from zero. You need to relearn how to do something. This process can be used also to correct a wrong speaking or singing attitude. So a lot of exercises that we do in vocal training, they do it for vocal therapy as well. Vocal maintenance, how you say that? What did you say? To limitate the damage instead of focus on technique. You said something similar to that, right?
Okay. So have you ever had someone come to you to get their vocals back to where it was before? Let's say they were a teacher, they've been doing it for 20 years and their vocals are really shot. Have you ever had someone where it's so bad that you can't fix it because they've just done it for too long of a prolonged period? Like, it's like smoking for
No.
No?
Okay, so that's a different thing. So you're talking about so smoking. It's like an external factor, and it's like consumption of alcohol, diet, what you eat, what you drink, and blah blah blah. A wrong attitude, it's something else. It's like going to the gym and doing the wrong exercise, and going to the gym doing the wrong exercise and being drunk. So it's an add-on. It's not something that is like that or like that. So it can be both of the cases. So a wrong used plus a wrong attitude, lifestyle, so it's wrong, not healthy for the vocal environment, like smoking or excessive alcohol or blah blah blah, is not one replacing the other. They can actually be both of them, and I would focus more on not the lifestyle part. I would focus on the mechanic. So how can I limitate the damage? I'm not psychotherapist. I cannot tell you smoking is wrong. We're gonna fix that. I'm gonna be like, okay, you're adult enough, see a therapist, smoking is wrong, fix that if you want. Just to let you know, smoking has that effect on the vocal cords. We're gonna try to imitate it, but it's not I'm gonna tell you stop to smoke. With a teacher, I would be like, stop to shout like a crazy person. Do it in a better way. That's the fixing in a person that is not a singer, for example.
Sure,
The fixing that.
I was thinking of it more like not the external activity, but more like they've been doing smoking for a long time, and because they've done it, the damage has already been done. Not the sense like, oh, they've chosen a external thing and then their voice has gone a bit.
Yeah.
I meant it more in that sense.
Uh,
So they've been doing because not because they've been teaching for 20 years, but because they've been doing it for so long.
yeah,
The
no, I
voice,
get it.
yeah, that's what I was going for.
No, honestly, no. Because if I cannot have an effect on that, it means that we are talking about probably getting surgery done. I mean, if a vocal coach cannot sort out your vocal issue, it means that you have something physical that it goes over some vocal training. For example, if that's the board of your vocal cords and they need to have a complete connection in order to sound, if you have a small bump on the edge of the vocal cords, you're going to have an issue in the mechanics. Sometimes the vocal coach can help you with that if the bump is small. Sometimes you damage it too much that you need to go to a doctor and need to do some microsurgery. Then you go to a vocal coach and do rehabilitation. So it depends. What is your case? Do you have a small thing that it can be trained and it can be eased, or do you have a massive mechanic problem that I cannot sort out, not even if we train for 25 years? In that case, they usually recognize it immediately when you have some vocal issue. We'd be like, hey, have you ever checked the doctor just in case?
Sure. Okay.
It's, it's not the first time that I work with broken vocalities, if you want to say like that. That they're not exactly broken, they're just showing the consequence of malfunctioning, if you wanna be more technical speaking. But I'm really objective when I hear immediately that something could be over my control. I would suggest you ask your GP to have a check, just to be sure that nothing physical is getting in the way. When there's nothing physical, no, I never found a case that I could not work with because of too long wrong vocal attitude.
Who's been your most unique profession has come to see you for vocal training?
A really cool Italian singer, actually.
Oh,
She's a young, she's a young and really talented, I would say. Uh, can I say her name? Frida Bollani Magoni.
okay.
I'm really proud because she's young, she's really young, and she's getting noticed into a global scale, let's say that. So not just in Italy, but here in UK as well. She's doing gigs. She's working in Europe. She's been working internationally, US, blah blah blah. And we met here in London. So it's like a big circle getting to the right point again, right? You started everything with English, learn the language, blah, blah, blah. And then one of your most, I'm not saying best customer or more famous customer, one of the most satisfying experience, let's say like that. But mainly for a vocal point of view, because she has such an incredible skills, like natural skills, that is just a mind-blowing pleasure when I do training with her. And like her, there are many that I could name here. Gilly J, Anchor the Sun, Oliver Nick. I don't know, I can link you so many of my students that are like, wow, such a nice feeling to spend an hour with you in the studio.
Sure. So, okay. So you prefer do you prefer in-person or online sessions?
Doesn't really matter, but I strongly prefer to train professional singers if I need to choose. Not because I don't like to train beginners, don't get me wrong. I love it, and I think that everybody should be able to access vocal training. So don't get me wrong, it's not a beginner, meh, I don't like that. It's just that with professional singers, there are different issues to be sorted. And I think that I'm more interested in that, not just because, oh, you are a professional and it's cool. No, I don't care about that. I I care about the objective. I can tune a person. It's not that the point. It's how satisfying I can find that. That's another question. It's like you interviewing me or interviewing a bigger personality with a bigger career. I think is gonna make a difference in your satisfaction. I think, and I'm not totally sure.
But I know what you mean. With like professionals, there's always a different challenge. With beginners, it's like
Yes,
it's kind of like the same playbook in that regard. It's like right, they're just starting out, so I know kind of where to go. But
I know what to do.
yeah,
Exactly. When I get artists that they write their own stuff and blah, 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 every time I need to be able to change my perspective depending who I am in front of me. With beginners, a lot of the time you need to follow basics and foundations and blah, blah, blah. They're lovely. Don't get me wrong, they're lovely. And a lot of my guys and
it's
girls
just
are
repeating,
beginners
isn't
and not professional at all. But where? Oh, come on! I'm gonna send you a playlist or two of my songwriters, and then you will understand there is a completely different approach to their needs, to their vocals, and why they're doing it, the level that they need of perception, self-awareness, blah blah blah. It's completely different.
and then you get that
Just
creative.
different. It's not better. It's just different.
No, I get it, and it also spices things up as well. So if you get a professional singer, it's like, hey, I'm a bit high on the tempo. You can tweak that to a beginner. It's like, all right, thank you for coming. Here's a playbook. This is how we're gonna get you singing. I get your
Let's
point.
start with breathing and
I mean, the
tuning.
advantage, not to rub it in, but the advantage I would say I've got with this podcast is, okay, yes, I'm still beginning. I can't go for like the big guys, but I can still play around with professions. With you, it's yeah, you don't quite have that flexibility, and I completely
That's when
get
I
your point.
started to realize. That's when I started to realize that my work was really cool.
No, I
uh, when you're like, oh, my job is really cool, not because you're treating big personalities, but because you find actually that there are so many professionals that you're not aware of, and they have skill, they are actually working, they're doing their stuff, and maybe they're not just on the charts or playlist or whatever, but you see that they actually have a living out of their job. That's the professional, in my opinion, the person who's getting a living by music and by singing and blah blah blah. And it doesn't mean how famous you are or how many hits on the playlist you got. I got some students that they have millions of tick and top and numbers. Uh, yeah, whatever, lucky them. It's not that the define a professionist, in my opinion.
what do you mean by that?
Well, I have students that have done major numbers without doing anything, just having a bullet shot of luck. The
Okay,
song
so
got really famous, and you got massive income from that, and that's really good. It doesn't make you out a professional, in my opinion. A professional is a person that is constantly working on that, and he needs to work on that forever because he's actually doing it, not because he had one luck shot and whoa, I got something out of that.
that's the problem with YouTubers. They can some
Ooh.
you can have that. Podcast is a little different because there's a lot of reps and you actually have to develop the skill before you shoot off. A YouTuber might just. I had this actually. I used to run a ambient sound YouTube channel, and that came about because I got lucky because out of all my videos I uploaded one rain ambient sound, and that just essentially got 100 views. Yeah, and I've experienced that myself, and you can fall into like a typecasting thing, and it basically killed the channel. Yes, it was growing. Yes, it was getting subscribers. Yes, it was building, but there was no innovating. I just basically became ambient YouTube channel number 5,000. I know what you
There we
mean
go.
though, because it's that luck factor, and then you're stuffed because you've not actually learned how to get there.
Anything. Exactly. You got massive amount of views, and then you cannot deal with that because you don't know how to keep the product going. Um, Again, it depends what is your goal, what is your background, and what is your personal story. I cannot blame it on the person that got really famous with one shot. If I could do the same, I would. But again, it's just a different training approach. From my side, what is changing is what we need to get to.
I need to personally say, if you can't figure out what made it successful, then it was luck. Because
Yeah.
Would you agree you could see that I've got a good understanding of the success because I can see the processes. I like the ambient channel, it's just here's 100 views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree. You can tell, but then it shows off anyway, because when you put an artist on a stage, you can tell how much, but maybe it doesn't affect the market, but you can tell when an artist on stage is actually, whoa, in the right place in the right time, and when you're like, what is that? Also, my mom can tell that. Come on, that doesn't affect and change the market. Still, when a song is catchy, even if the singer doesn't show perfect skills, it becomes the big hit of the summer, and that's it. We're gonna deal with that. But then when you see live on stage, it's something different, in my opinion. That's what is cutting the professional from the non. I mean, why? If it's not your profession to keep on doing music, you're not a professional. You're a person that got money or luck from a musical product, but you're not professionally keep doing stuff. You just got luck, and that's it. Okay, that doesn't mean have a trained voice or have the experience on a stage that you know how to handle tension, people, crowd. It's a lot different.
I know what you mean. You do get those artists, like music artists in particular, where you listen to them when they're on a song, and because it's been through all the post production stuff, it sounds really good. But they get on stage and they sound like they just don't sound anything like it.
Yeah, and it's really, I don't know. I never got my head around that. If you are so famous, why don't you do something to sound better? That it is not so difficult. I mean, I train people since 12 years, and I tuned also the most out of tune people. So I don't get it. Why, if it's your field, you don't get absolutely the best of that?
Don't forget Kim Kardashian famously got famous off a sex tape, so here we are.
Yeah, and probably everything is coming back to the market, right? So what people are gonna buy anyway? You can, I don't know. You can kind of predict that. What is the hit? What it could be the hit? You can kind of. But then at the end of it all, I think that in the music market, especially music, art, and entertainment, um, a lot of that is played by management and how you've been pushed, if you want to see that, the link that you have, the context that you have, the people that you might know, that you may not know, the school that you've done in UK. Actually, you got some really good school. When you get into, I don't know, the Royal Music Academy, you probably get some really good context out of that. I know there are so many factors that can actually have an effect on that.
Well, you could also have it where they're a shit singer but a great marketing team, and then you could have a great singer but shit marketing. You could have that as well. So the marketers are
Absolutely, man.
yeah.
Absolutely. But that's again, what are you doing? Like, are you doing a song because you want to smash the market for the summer? Good. That's a perfect goal. You got it. Again, it's a different training, a different perspective. I'm sure that some of my students, they will write songs until the day they die because they need to do it. It's an urge, it's an internal need, and they need to do it. As much as I'm sure that some of my singers in 10 years probably they are shifted to contemporary dancing or electric guitar or I don't know. And of course, the most satisfying, they are the one that, not they're lasting in time, but the one that you can actually touch the difference in the process of their own evolution, if you want to see it like that.
No, I get what you mean. You can see that evolution of what changed to develop the purple. Yeah, you can see. Okay, so this person was a bit raspy. We worked on that. Now it's a bit less. Is less raspy. And it sounds better. This person, we just gave them a technique to up the pitch of their voice. Now it sounds really nice. I understand. You can connect the dots. It's like what I said. My
Exactly.
yeah success example. Blank 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 equals blank.
Yeah, and then you're like tick 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 tick, and slowly, slowly you recognize a little bit of you in their vocal attitude. I don't know, that's really satisfying when you go to see them live and you're like, oh my God, that's happening because we actually work on that.
It's also something a
It's
bit more
really cool.
respectable about that, isn't there? Where you can tell they've put the work in as opposed to, like, we use the gym example again. There's a lot more respectable if you see a guy who's, or a girl, it doesn't matter. When you see someone who's actually put the work in and built the muscles, as opposed to the person who took steroids and just basically, I mean, there
Yeah,
are
hey, there we go.
exceptions.
Exactly. That's a
There
good
are
example,
exceptions.
man.
I know someone in their 60s is on steroids, but they're still, I know, in shape, but they're still working. So that's a bit more reasonable in that situation. But
Reasonable.
typically,
Okay.
typically, you would go, yeah, do you take steroids? No. Excellent. Do you? Yes. Get out. Because they haven't, they've just
Yeah,
shortcut the process.
exactly. The only difference, well, I think that is the same actually.
Well,
A
no, the
people that doesn't do gym.
60-year-old I told you about, it's like he's still
Yeah,
working.
but a
It
person
makes
that,
sense for him too in that case.
oh yeah, sure. But try to see it from your perspective. So you're into gym, so you can tell when a person takes steroids or when he has a natural training. A question: the normal person that is not doing gym is he even able to understand which body is made by steroids and which body is not made by steroids? So, from a non-musician, non-singer, non-vocal coach point of view, is the average people able to understand when a singer is skilled that has actually a good technique and blah blah blah, or the average person is not able to understand that?
I think if it's so god awful, they can, but if it's not, it's like the same thing with filmmaking.
Exactly.
I watched Kill Bill a few years ago, and I noticed when they throw the knife, that scene where the sword, not fisherman, sword master throw the knife was at an
Mhm.
angle, but they cut to a shot when it was straight, where it was straight, and I picked up on that. But most people aren't going to notice it. And it was
There
only
we
by
go.
watching a clip of Doom, the latest Doom film, they had a scene. Okay, I'm gonna spoiler warning for Doom 2. They had a scene where like one of the guards got what one of the Emperor's assistants come over and say, my lord, we need to get out of here because the sandstorm's affecting our shields. And the guy who's in trouble goes, the mountains will protect us. And we cut to where the guard's like, what the hell did you say? And then the Emperor does this, but then the way they edit it, he's like sitting like this, and then the edit's like that. Like, I have a filmmaking background from college and uni.
I would probably not notice that.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think it's also like a level of training. It's like what you said about me with the gym. I'll notice you're on steroids. I'll notice and won't, but someone, a viewer watching this, might go, "There's a difference."
Yeah, exactly. Like you can understand it if somebody's training or not because you can see it, but majority of the people they don't have the skills to understand your specific field. Um, and that's what makes the market going, in my opinion, because if all the people had the the, the proper understanding of music and blah blah blah, a lot of artists that there are now they wouldn't be out. I think. Um, that maybe is really subjective and kind of judgmental. But I don't know, a lot of contemporary artists without the tools that we have in the contemporary era, I don't know if they would make it as musician. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if they didn't have the external factors, the input
Yeah.
wouldn't matter. Yeah, you get that. I was thinking about this in relates to trauma, where you get. Have you ever heard of Tim Grover?
No?
Oh, he's basically guy who coached Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Yeah, that was the other one. He slipped my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, and he said you can take two people, put them in the same environment, and one becomes a survivor and the other one becomes a victim. Same two people, different environments. Now I know there's some other psychological effects, as I know names play an effect on your
Mhm.
psyche, and there's a whole philosophy thing. I'm not getting into that one, but I was thinking like when it comes to external factors with, say, just keep with the trauma thing, it's, well, what if you took two people, both with the same end goal, but one gets it, one doesn't? but you put those two same people in a different traumatic event and the roles are reversed. And I wonder in the case of vocals, where if it's a case of, well, was it not down to them? Was it purely down to their marketing? If you gave them a different team, would they have got the same result? Because okay, I know this guy's kind of like,
Yeah, that's a really interesting question.
yeah, because I know this guy's a very controversial person, Kanye West. I know he's been in the media. I fully get that, but he said about, I think it was Rihanna or Beyonce. He said that these people think this is like a gift from the universe and it's actually like a deep state thing. I'm not going to get into conspiracies, but that does make me think. It's like, did they become success? If that is true, or if he's saying like it was in their cases it was external factors, what happens if you swapped out their external team? That makes sense. It's like
Can be one of the major, but it's like that in all the fields, I think. Like, I don't know how it works with podcasts because I never done, but I assume they want to. If you get super mainstream and blah blah blah, you're gonna upgrade slowly your tools, blah blah blah. You're gonna have a graphic designer sorting out the details for the thumbnails of your episodes and blah blah blah. What if this person was another person with a different taste and he was putting a different graphic on that? Would that have a major impact? Yes, of course. But can you predict that? No, because it's not your field. It's that field.
yeah, because I would love to get a video editor personally because they take so much time. Like I'm not
Tell
even
me.
doing like I'm not even doing fancy transact. Well, okay, maybe I'll do the come up bit, but that's like simple. But oh my words, I mean the amount of time it takes a video edit. I know I'm complaining about this. I get,
Forever.
but that does
Forever.
yeah.
That's the side of my job that I'm not sure I totally like it.
What?
The fact of no, the media presence, the social media presence. If I could do my job smoothly without being so present on social media, I would, if I should be honest. Less content creation, all this thing of always being there and always need to feed people with images, sound, and blah, blah, blah. It's tiring. Especially if you don't do it, you don't understand how long does it take, the amount of time, energy, shooting the video. I don't like what I said it in a wrong way. Oh, I didn't put the S at the end of a third person. All these stupid things, right? A mistake in spelling the captions. I don't know, is taking for everything that it's video editing and blah blah blah. It's taking forever. And
Most people don't realize this. This is back when I was a gamer. I used to listen to the Escapists. This is before they broke off and became Second Wind. They even said in one of their shows, this wasn't I don't think it was a podcast, but it was one of their regular shows where they said people just don't understand. The normal person won't understand what actually goes into this. There was I've referenced this book a few times. There's a book by MJ DeMarco called Unscripted. It's an entrepreneur book. But one thing he said, he was talking about the difference between an event and the build up to the event. So the event is essentially the video going out on social media. It's the actual coaching
everything's coming before.
yeah, but the preparation's everything before that. So it's like with you, it's the person messaging you, paying for the session, turning up to the session, all like the leading up to the session. With me, it's messaging people, it's getting people to, yes, do you want to come on, do you not want to come on, and it's all the editing and all the build up. People don't quite understand the amount of time that goes into these things.
Because they just see the result of that.
That's the other problem, is like I think a lot of people are optimizing for the results but not the work, which is this weird paradox. It's like, well, the results to get you the work, yeah, true, but to get those results you need to put the work in.
Man, it's the same thing about vocal training. I have some students that they think for absurd that a lesson with me, they're gonna make them the best singer ever. And wait a second, it takes time, patience, training. I mean, no magician, isn't it? Everything takes time. And this is a process that I think that new generation especially, they're not really getting it, that you need a little bit of effort to get things done. I don't know, that's kind of the new um, way of everything is disposable. Everything is fast, disposable. You get it, you throw it away, blah, blah, blah. They don't understand the process that actually you take to get the things done and get it and not throwing it away the day after.
I didn't, for the audience, I didn't mean to whine about what I do. I love this, to be clear.
No, I love my job. I love my job, and everybody knows that it's, for me, the best thing I could have done.
But I think the best way I could describe it is, but I think, I don't want to word this. It's, I think because of our attention spans being so shortened, I think that's going to have a huge play in the long run. There's a famous author called Robert Greene, I've not read this book, but the 48 Laws of Power, and he was saying about AI, and it's like, well, this is just going to kill really going to kill people's attention spans and their skill set, because with something like ChatGPT, you need to be a bit careful with that. But there's going to be a bunch of people who use it and then just go, right, that's my work done for the day in like 5 minutes.
In a small component, artificial intelligence, you can compare it to autotune, if you want to see like that in music. So some external fact that they're going to correct your pitch. So it's always been there, but not always, but it's been there since a while. In Japan, one of the most top-selling artists, it was an avatar a few years ago. So not a real voice. It was So that's always the point. I don't see artificial intelligence is gonna replace humans, because there's gonna be a human factor that is gonna condition the human project, right? The peculiarity of being human. That said, we probably need to be more competitive on the market with robots and fake voice and fake images and Photoshop and autotune and video editing. Probably we're gonna get to the point that we're not gonna be sure if what we see is actually real or retouched, and what we hear is actually a real voice or not. But can we stop the process? Like it's already going, so why fight it?
I had this conversation with my last guest, because from a legal standpoint, it's going to turn into an absolute nightmare. I'm just
that can
be
be.
not to repeat the same thing. If you have someone who breaks the law and you've got video with their eye in the play, we're going to have to screw around to figuring out, is this real or has this been falsely made?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to wrap it up there, because again, I don't want to like bang the same drum for the same episode following onwards. But I think personally, artificial intelligence, there's an argument where it's not actually intelligence, it is artificial, but it's more like, because we've programmed the intelligence aspect of AI, it's not really intelligence in the way, we've just essentially coded it to be smart.
Yeah, it's code. Maybe with time it's gonna get really powerful, and I'm kind of sure that it's gonna go in that direction. Not sure if at the moment it's gonna replace the human activity or the human artistic point of view, or the human X factor, if you want to call it like that, right? Don't think that we are at the point yet. Could lead to that, not sure. We're gonna see it in 5 to 10 years, probably. I don't know. Think about how fast they are evolving these things. Like when I was a kid, I was not even in the plan. Not even my iPhone was on the plan. Not even YouTube probably was on the plan when I was a kid.
That's true. That's something I've really noticed with tech in general in the throughout my life. I somewhat describe myself as an old relic, still alive, because I was born in 1999, like the very, very, very end of that century. And
Okay.
for comparison, I remember when I was like 9, 10 years old, like you just flick through Argos catalogs and I want that for Christmas, I want that for Christmas. Fast forward, I said this in a job interview actually. I did that was 10. Fast forward 10 years, our computers are connected to our phones, which are connected to our printers, which are connected to our kitchen appliances. And that's all in the span
Yeah.
of 10 years. So can you imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Like, I still remember.
And you are still from a part of generation. You are 10 years younger than me. So imagine that I cross over. Do you remember the Nokia 3031? No, because you're too bloody
Well,
young.
I actually did have a Nokia. It was I was 10 when I had this, and it was a second-hand one. Yeah, I do actually remember those.
The one with the black screen with the snake
Yeah,
going
yeah,
through.
I'm being dead serious here.
Oh, hey, imagine
yeah.
the new generation. They are already over that. They come out with an iPad in their hands and they're like, whoa, technology. I've been through the change. I noticed that. Imagine the oldest generation, like, I don't know, my parents, they have a massive cultural break in the middle.
There's a thing I listened to it the other day. What's it called? Damn it. I keep forgetting these, but there's a thing where I can't remember if it's generationals like evolution or something else, but it's where the previous generation gets sped through the processes of the generations that came before them and then just add on to it. So in my case,
the next generation will have the process.
Add to it. And the thing with that is like, well, like I said, I still remember my Nokia. Like I still remember playing Snake on that thing. Like I was, and but the generation, they can just do that with if they wanted to. They could do with pixels on their phone, and they've essentially gone from a device which is they've skipped the part where the device is literally a phone to a computer in their pocket.
Yeah, basically yes. I still remember when I was trying to load up images that it was taking hours. They were showing a line by line, and it was loading up, and you were. Today I'm watching videos on YouTube and I just skip them and go through the next one, blah, blah, blah. Can you imagine how my training would have been so much easier with the tool that we have now today? Oh my God.
Yeah. I think...
But again, I'm not sure that they're going to use that as a resource. It could be a really powerful resource if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if the young generation are using the best out of that.
Well, I think part of the problem is we've got more entertainment than information. I've referenced a statistic before, and I don't know whether it's changed, but in 2021 there was 24 hours of anime uploaded a day. And I use that as a reference point because could you imagine that for all the other different types of mediums? I mean, I can't imagine what it is for songs. I can't. What's the statistic for YouTube? It's something like how many hours per day get uploaded to YouTube?
A lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
That you've got streaming is a little bit different because they actually have to be there, and it only lasts for as long as the person's streaming. That comes into play with it. It's also that comes into play with it. You've also got all like the photos on social media. I don't even know what the statistic is for Instagram. And now we've got AI generated thing. We've got and video games. Yeah, my point is we've got all this entertainment. I think we've optimized
too much stimulations.
Sorry, what?
Too much stimulation from the externals. We are bombarded by sounds and images and whoa, we are literally bombarded. We are surrounded by that.
I mean, let's be honest, it takes longer to write an information book than it does to make a short TikTok.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
TikTok, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
That's a trend that I will never understand. But please come and see my live streaming on TikTok.
Nic Farina. Sorry, man. How do I say your surname again?
It's all right, don't worry. Farina, that's really Italian. It means flour, like the one they use for baking. not the flower, the pretty flower, the one, the
Okay.
white flower. Hey, you see where my accent come into place, right? With flower, flower, the white one, not the flower,
When you
the
said
smelly
flower,
one.
I literally thought, it's a bouquet.
No, not that one, the other one, the white powdery stuff that you use
I
for bread.
understand. I can't get. Ah. I know what the short's going to be for this one. Nick,
Well, you have a little bit of material to choose between the turtles and that. We have a lot to play around with. I absolutely need to remember to send you the video of the turtles because it's really amazing.
oh, great. I'll make sure I find the time. Nick, everyone. Sorry, I'm not.
Nick, everyone.
So
Don't worry.
I'm not going to keep butchering it. I'll get insulting. We've had.
No, don't worry.
Nick, everyone.
It's totally fine. You can mess up my name and surname. It's totally fine.
I don't think it's justifiable on my one. Where can people find you where if they want to actually book a coaching session or they want to get to know you a bit more?
You can find me on the internet. We were talking about that. No, I'm kidding. You're going to find me majorly based in London. I live in London. I live in N19, so North London. And I've been here since 6 years and probably another 6 to come. So I'm pretty much rooted down. You're going to find me a week every month in the sunny place called Italy because I opened the second studio down to Italy. In the last year, I managed to open a second location. And you're going to find me in the internet as well. So every channel that you want from TikTok and Instagram, YouTube, just put Nic F vocal coach and I should come out. It's the only one with that name. So even if you don't know how to spell my surname, if you put Nic F London, should come out in Google.
Your name will be in the title, so people can just use that.
Perfect, even easier. Yeah, just to let you know, people, I'm online in all the social media, so come and give me a click. That it's really helpful.
If you enjoyed that episode, then we've got the entire playlist here, or we've got clips here. Take your pick.